Hey friends, multimedia artist in Los Angeles, David Miller. I want to talk really quick about a technique I've been using a lot in my animations and videos, multimedia projects, that is taking vintage works, things that are either in like public domain or, just sort of like production art, like postcards from the 1950s. And so doing generative expand in Photoshop so I get more of what really wasn't there, and then taking separate postcards of similar areas and blending them together using the same technique. It's really easy to do. Generative expand is in all current versions of Photoshop. You take the crop tool, pull out from the boundaries of whatever you are currently working with, and you have the option for generative expand. You hit that and it's going to fill in what it thinks goes there or what you tell it goes there. And this technique works best by doing it incrementally, meaning a little bit at a time, because generative expand only works up to a certain pixel threshold at a time. So if you were to try and duplicate the size of your original image right away, it's going to give you crummier pixels spread across that area versus if you just did it a little bit at a time. So I've been able to get some really good results doing this, and the reason why I like to use older works for backgrounds, vintage works, one, I love the aesthetic of the art of that time. Two, it's frequently in public domain. And three, a lot of my animation influences are people who do that sort of thing. Terry Gilliam, collage animator. Shows like SpongeBob will have photographs or real world stuff interact with the characters. Muppet Babies, there's a long history of bringing this older kind of artwork and having it as, I don't want to say it's the main attraction, it's kind of, background flair. But the fourth reason being that backgrounds are typically the hardest thing for most illustrators and animators to do well. I think about the backgrounds of Chuck Jones cartoons in the 1950s and how abstract they were and how great they were. Absolutely stunning works. In most cases, backgrounds are either an afterthought or they're a thing passed off to the assistant. Even most, famous mangas, the main guy only does the characters and then they pass the backgrounds off to assistants, or they just buy them. Or they generate them using something like Google SketchUp or an AI program. But I do like to have a little bit of a printmaking, print history, halftones, offset printing look to my works, and generating these mashup backgrounds is one way to do it. I do a couple extra things besides expand the postcards. I've been putting together similar images on the same canvas and then using generative expand in the gap between those two areas to find some sort of just all link up mashup part, because Photoshop's going to try and do that. It's going to try and find the space that's gonna suit image on the left and image on the right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gives you something that's cool enough that you can start refining it and chiseling it into that middle ground space. But one reason I really like to do this is, one, that my backgrounds get to be more than just, I found a postcard image on Google and slapped it on the back of my work. I do like to have some input into the creative collages that I make. Also, I find that when you have a larger background or a larger canvas to use in your films and your animation, now you can have your characters positioned against different things. They can take a little walk and, see multiple things. And the next step I do when I've got something like that, I've got my full layers of horizontal, vertical movements, then I like to break it up into at least three planes, a foreground, middle ground, and a background. So if the characters do move, something flies around, or I need to go into the scene, I get some parallax movement. I just want to have some movement against the background so it doesn't look like a completely flat thing. Some of the aesthetics that I like that go into my own personal animation are when you think of plays from the 1800s or something like Adventures of Baron Munchausen, which is another Terry Gilliam film. And they have those like flat waves that move around. I always thought that was the coolest thing. You know, when things are sort of like two-dimensional layers, but interacting, I find that appeals to my sensibilities a lot more than, fully 3D, every direction, can do anything kinds of stuff. The animation work of films like The Secret of Kells, plays into that flat design where they've taken a lot of this manuscript, very ancient art, and brought it into the aesthetic of the film, the way all the characters are designed, the way the movements are, the textures. All that stuff is very rich, and I think a lot of it gets thrown out when we try and make everything 100% modern, and we ignore like the rich history of culture and tradition. Like, there's ways to bring that into the works you make, and even if it's just a background in one of my goofy Marvel animations, it still feels like it's a little bit more than everything I could draw to the best of my ability, and I can't draw buildings very well. I can buy Procreate stamps that are buildings. I've done that, and I can cut out structures, and I can mash up structures that I photograph, for sure. I photograph a lot of stuff around where I live and incorporate it in my animations. But my personal philosophy on what I do as an artist is that it's more about collage, sampling, remixing, generating. The component that glues all that together is that it's based on my own personal experience and what I've sought out in life and where I live and, who I interact with. So it isn't a matter of like sourcing sample material from Shutterstock and all these like videos that are just kind of random. They're all like chunks that I've recorded or captured or have some kind of like personal connection to. Long story short, though, I think that Generative Expand is one of my favorite AI tools. Certainly the first one that I really got into, and I found a lot of good creative uses that get quality results. And I do love working in the tradition of the fine artists who made all these visual ephemera, whether it was, filled with soul, or whether it was production work, or whether it's like snapshot stuff from the 1800s, 1900s, medieval times when they were drawing weird monsters. Like the new tools we have give us an opportunity to play and interact with that history and that culture in a different way. If you do any cool Generative Expand stuff out there, I would love to see it. Post links in the comments below. Best of luck in your own creative endeavors. Talk to you next time.